You've got birds that are flying into through these open areas. So I want to try to get bait as close to where these birds are and what they flagged as being safe. We've actually watched the flock of birds split up, and half of them, go to the left and half of them go to the right, and they'll split up on one side of the farm, and then they will rejoin on the other side of the farm. They have such a strong negative reaction here. The last episode you guys watched, hopefully, is one where I talked about bird flu, and I said that, man, this thing was just, potentially could wreck like all farms, all dairy farms all over the place, and cost billions of dollars, and the whole H5N1 thing and sending people to hospital. Just crazy stuff. And I talked about it being really avoidable. And I'm not going to get into go back and watch that video. If you want to see like all the details about how alpha birds work and like all that kind of stuff, because I kind of described a little bit about that. And so what I want to do is actually talk just a little bit about baiting for birds at a dairy farm. Now, before I get into baiting for birds at a dairy farm, I actually want to show you guys here just really quickly what Avitrol actually is. So I'm going to share my screen here with you. Okay, so I'm going to go over here. If you're wondering what Avitrol is, we've got a great video here. What is Avitrol do to birds? What's the active ingredient in Avitrol? So you get a little bit of an idea, but the basic idea is that it changes how birds communicate to each other at a fundamental level. It's a biotechnology. It changes the way that alphas are communicating with the rest of the flock. So they look at a farm and they say, hey, this isn't safe. We should leave and not come back. That's basically how it works. Now, the product that we're going to use for this is similar to what you guys are using already, and that's like a hay silage type of mix here. And so you've got your hay and you've got your silage. Essentially, all you're doing is adding Avitrol, and I've got a picture of it here on our website. This is our double strength corn chops product. We've got that in like double rolled, single rolled, and in fine as well. And so that mixes right in with your existing silage. Basically, you want to keep your cows out of it and that kind of thing. But the birds are already going for it. You guys already know it. You can see the black flapping wings, like all that kind of stuff. And so you mix a little bit of that in there. It actually is what causes those alphas to change the way that they communicate. I'm actually going to take a look at a farm, not exactly the farm that we've treated, thousands of farms and seen success getting birds out of there that are spreading bird flu and all that kind of stuff. So I'm not going to show you an actual farm just for the sake of privacy and stuff, but I want to show you one that we found that's pretty much exactly the same type of setup here. So I'm going to scroll all the way in, and you can see here basically we've got our barns that are set up for dairy, and I'm going to get all the way down in here further so I can kind of show you guys what's going on. So we'll click in here, and I get down to Street View. Google's amazing for this kind of stuff, and then get in here, and you can actually see here's one of our barns. There's a couple of our barns. We're going to go down the road here just a little bit so we can look at a couple of the barns here so we can get a little bit closer view. I'm going to show you guys some things that are kind of going on in this type of scenario. So what's going on right now in this kind of scenario is you've got birds that are flying through these open areas, and I know you guys who are on the farm side, you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. They're flying into these open areas, and then there's beams up top, right up over here, and they're actually loafing on these beams, and droppings are actually falling down on top of the cows, and it's causing all sorts of issues, right? Here, let me see if I can go just a little bit further in the Google car here. Okay, I think I can. I'm going to zoom in so hopefully you guys can see. And so that silage mix that we were talking about earlier, and you guys know how this works, is being fed to the dairy cows right in through here, right? That's what's happening. So what's happening, and you guys know, you'll have these birds that are hanging out in the rafters, and then they're going to fly down through this area here, and they're actually going to go ahead and start feeding right there to that silage mix where the cows are feeding too. Some of you guys might be a little different setup. You might have bunks or something like that are down there, but most of you guys are probably going to have this just right here on the outside of where cows actually have access to it, and then you're going to go through and you're going to refill this multiple times a day, right? So what we want to do is we want to try to actually bait these birds in areas that they've already considered to be safe, and bait them with things that they're already eating, right? So it's like they're already feeding on this, right? And so this is the reason why all I've got to do is mix a little bit of Avitrol in with my silage mix, right? And that's actually how I'm going to get these birds to change the way that they communicate, right? So if I'm going in and I'm treating, I'm always asking myself where the bird's coming from and where are they going to, right? They're coming in here from the outside, and then they're going to a place like this. They're going to these rafters. So I want to try to get bait as close to where these birds are and what they flagged as being safe, without actually endangering any of the livestock or anything like that that's there. So there's a pretty easy way to do that. Essentially what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to come in, let's say first thing in the morning, you're feeding your cows. What I would do is actually make sure that all of this silage mix is cleaned up here, right? So you might have to skip a feeding or change your feeding pattern just a little bit here. And then what I would actually end up doing, I'm actually going to try to see if I can, you know what, I'm going to go over to this barn over here. This one's maybe just a little bit brighter, so you guys will be able to see. Yeah, there we go. You'll be able to see the inside just a little bit better. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean up this silage mix, and you can see the cows can only get through the pens so far. I want to make sure that I don't endanger these cows at all. So I'm going to clean up this mix here, and the first feeding of the day at the same time as normal, I'm actually going to put out my mixture that's got Avitrol in it right down here, right down along here, right on the ground of this barn here, and I'm going to clean up that silage mix, right? So here's what's going to happen, and it looks like Google kind of zoomed out for me. I'm going to get back into that here real quick. So what's going to end up happening now is the birds are going to be able to actually get to my mixture. The mixture ratio I'm actually going to use here is probably like a 1-to-9 dilution ratio, 1 part treated to 9 parts untreated. So it's like you've got your 9 parts of your silage mix and all that kind of stuff that's untreated, and then I'm going to do a 1 part treated of the actual Avitrol mix. And I'm going to run this right through down the middle of this barn, out of reach of these cows. Now, for some of you guys, it might actually mean moving these cows or sub-segmenting the pens or moving them to a different pen or something. And that's just fine too. That's no big deal. As long as the birds are used to actually hanging out up here in these beams, purlings, like all that kind of stuff, and as long as they're used to feeding out of these troughs over here or off the ground right over here on the other side of the pen, then you're just fine. So I'm actually going to go ahead and deploy my active bait right down here, right down the middle. And what's going to happen is the birds are going to get to it. These cows can't actually get to it. And I'm actually going to go ahead and leave that out there for probably like 2 to 4 hours, somewhere in there. That's going to give me like 3, 4, maybe 5 great feedings from these birds. I'm going to do it first thing in the morning too. Because it's kind of like taking medicine on an empty stomach. When you take medicine on an empty stomach, you get like this immediate reaction, and that's exactly what we want from the birds. We want them to wake up first thing in the morning, go to a fresh food source, and then they hit that fresh food source, and you get this immediate grounded reaction, right? That's what you're going for. So I'd hit them first thing in the morning with a mix like this, right? This 1-to-9 dilution ratio mix. And then from there, so let's say you hit them at about 5 in the morning or so, I'd actually pick that up, replace that, then go ahead and put your, clean that up, of course, make sure it doesn't mix in within your silage mix or anything like that. Clean that up, and then go ahead and put your silage mix down and feed your cows. If you have to do an extra feeding or something for your cows or double up or do whatever, right, do that. You don't have to do this a whole lot of times. Really, we're talking about 1 active bait rotation a week. Is really about what we're talking about for up to about 4 weeks. Now, if you want to do them sooner, you can do that for a little bit faster results. You absolutely can, but 1 rotation per week is just fine. If you are not a farmer and you're a pest management professional watching this, the application is going to be exactly the same. Just look for, I just want to try and match up, if I'm talking about this grain that's here that's in kind of a silage mix, again, where I've got, my hay, my grain, my vitamins, and like all that stuff in here. I'm going to try and match that up. And then from there, I'm going to deploy right here. and I might actually just stay on site or whatever and remove that, or I might circle back, make a couple stops, do some things on my route, the things I need to, and I might actually pull that up. Now, if they'll let you extend a little bit longer right now, because again, I'm thinking about feeding the cows, but if they'll let you extend longer, if you're a pest management professional, you could always circle back like the next day or something like that, remove that again, as long as the livestock just can't have that, doesn't gain access to it, right? That's really the main thing. You got to make sure that non-targets can't get in here, right? So that's livestock or any other things. You just got to make sure that's the case. And if that's the case, then you can actually circle back. Now, if you're a farmer, it is a restricted use product. It's what's known as the good stuff, right? So you do have to be a professional to actually use. And so what's actually required for a farmer would be a private applicator's license, right? A lot of you guys are carrying stuff like this already, especially if you're already using, some type of something to deal with chemically with anything around. A lot of guys will have guys that are floating around or hands or something like that too that come in that actually have this license. So a private applicator license is what's required. Structural pest license is what's required if you're a pest control guy watching this. Now, if you don't have your license, that's no big deal. It's a pretty easy process. We've actually got some links below for if you don't have your license, what that process looks like. Specifically, we're looking at Pennsylvania right now. So the link that we've got there is for the state of Pennsylvania, but we actually have that for all states. And so all you've got to do, and I'll actually show you guys here, if you want to reach out to us about this, is on our website, you'll just get over, there's a tab right here called support. You'll just hit this little support tab here, and that's loading here on my screen right now, but you'll hit that support tab. That's how you're going to reach out to us. You'll click this little I'm ready thing here, and then from there you're actually going to go ahead and select support. And you'll hit let's get started, and you'll just enter a little bit of information here, and then after you enter information, you'll ask your question like, hey, how do I actually get my private applicator license in Wisconsin? And we have we try to make it really easy for you. We have a complete step-by-step and all that kind of stuff for every single state that we give you to actually help get your license and get it pretty quick. But that's really how you would go about treating a dairy farm. Pretty straightforward on doing this. Navigating this with pigeons is going to be pretty similar. I might actually even have some additional options. If you're on the pest management side, you might even consider baiting trays or something like that, either on the back side of these, again, where cows can't get to it, or maybe even on the roofs, if you can sort of stabilize or flatten those trays out or something like that, right? But there are all sorts of options here to be able to treat. But again, the benefit of doing it this way rather than trying to shoot birds or hang something or do whatever. I mean, think about it. First of all, look how big this thing is. If you net all this up here, right, A, that's going to cost a fortune. B, it's going to wear down with time. And then C, the birds are just going to float around somewhere else, right? They can still get in here. They can still get to the food. They can still contaminate stuff, right? And that's the reason why bird flu is getting spread in the first place, right? If I install some of these other things in here, right, all I'm going to do is imagine this is if I've got a laser or something going along this line here for a while, what's going to happen? The birds over here are going to fly away. What happens with the birds over here? Absolutely nothing, right? If I get a couple lasers going at the same time, or whatever, right, the birds are going to fly away, but then they're going to fly right back, right? And I got to do it over and over and over again. And what happens in the in-between? There's still droppings, there's still contamination, there's all the stuff, right? So again, this goes back to what I was talking about in that first video about bird flu and the other 65 or so diseases that birds carry that can spread to either wildlife or humans or both. Right? It's just that we've got to have solutions that actually change their behavior at the core. And so this particular solution changes their behavior at the core, changes what the alphas are communicating, and they say, hey, this farm right here is not a safe place. Let's get out of here and let's find somewhere safer to go. And let me show you guys an overhead real quick. This is really, really interesting. Here's how strong of a negative reaction that we've seen. We'll get overhead on this farm. We've actually seen, let's say you've got a flock of birds flying in from over here and flying over here. We've actually watched the flock of birds split up, and half of them, go to the left and half of them go to the right, and they'll split up on one side of the farm, and then they will rejoin on the other side of the farm. They have such a strong negative reaction here to the biotechnology there. All right, so that's really all we're doing is we're changing those birds' communication at a biological level. That gets them to do what we want, and then all of a sudden, boom, our farm is bird-free, and we're not worrying about bird flu. We're not losing millions of dollars, and we're not potentially affecting human health and human safety. So that's really it. Hey, if you like what you just saw, again, make sure that you comment below. We want to know what you thought about it, or if there's different video ideas that you'd like to see. Make sure you put comments in there, and that lets us know what it is that we want to put, what you guys want to see, because we're looking out for you guys and want to give you guys great information. Also, take some time to subscribe so you don't miss other great stuff. We're going to talk about all sorts of things. We'll do the same thing with hogs. We'll do the same thing with poultry. But then we'll also talk about other commercial buildings, retail facilities, and all sorts of stuff, basically. Just trying to, again, look out for you, make sure we're not spreading bird flu and other types of diseases there, looking out for human health and safety. So make sure that you subscribe, and then stay tuned for more great stuff, because I promise you it's coming. We look forward to hearing from you, and we'll see you on the next episode.